for a bit, but what I said was, thank you all very much for coming to the info session tonight, whether it's 6 p.m. like it is for me here in Los Angeles or later in the evening. Really appreciate this. This is the first year, obviously, we've done virtual info sessions like this, and quite frankly, I really miss going to the universities and meeting you all, potential participants in this program, in person and also seeing all my past alumni who come to these sessions and run them at each of your universities wherever you are. Uh, Unfortunately, this session is going to be a little bit different in that I usually have one or two alumni with me to either do the presentation or answer questions on the chat. This time I don't have anyone. We fortunately have a smaller group right now than this morning. We had upwards of 80, which is a good thing for both me, since I'm not going to be able to answer the chat questions while I present, but also for you guys. I will in this session I will stop and have time for questions in the chat, or you can even unmute, turn on video, whatever, and ask a question live. That's what we're going to do a little bit differently today, which I think is nice for y'all. And if I get to hear your voices and see your faces, that's nice for me too, because that's what I'm used to. Um, but for now, as I do this presentation, you'll see in the slides when the time for question is, and I'll show you that in a second. So I know there's probably a lot of questions, and there's a lot of different aspects of the program. Of course, COVID's going to come up immediately, and what are we doing with that? You can check our website on our COVID update page. Most importantly, and with this actually, I'll start let me share my screen and start the presentation here. Um, the most important thing or the best way to stay updated rather, is to sign up for our newsletter. We send it once every couple weeks. If we have more updates throughout this recruiting season, throughout the fall, we'll send it more often. But this is really going to be the best way to stay updated with the camp and the status of the camp with COVID. Of course, we'll post it on our website. Of course, we'll post it on our social media. But the newsletter really is the best way to stay updated. So sign up for that if you haven't. No pressure, of course, but I always like to start info sessions like this. And it's not just about the program. We have other opportunities in Japan. We've got other programs in development, potentially some remote online programs coming up, and we're constantly throwing out things about not just Japan, but all over the world, opportunities that we hope we can get to potential interns in our camp and promote not just our program. But anyways, like I said, uh, this is kind of the structure of when I would like the questions to come in, because I'm not going to be able to monitor the chat like I normally do, or one of my alumni or interns would do. So I appreciate your patience in that. If you can hold off till the questions, or if you have something and feel like you're going to forget it, you can type it and then press enter a little bit later. Otherwise, I'll have time to like scroll and see any questions and answer them. So I think with 30 people, it's nice and manageable, so we should be okay. I forgot to introduce myself. I should do that first. I'm Matt, the program director of Coming Out Japan, and I first did this program in 2015. That's when it first started, when there was only 11 of us interns, and it was very impactful for me. Obviously, why I'm still here and why I'm leading this session and have been for the last few years. Um, I A little background. I also teach in Los Angeles, and recently I taught junior high school world history, and after a full year of teaching these junior high school students, about 200 kids, I definitely questioned, how much of an impact have I had on my students? And this is after a full year. The really impressive thing to me about English Camp, and quite frankly, the reason I stuck around, is because after just 5 days, so you only spend 5 days with students, and I'll get to the schedule in a bit. It was very tangible in terms of I saw the impact I had on these students. I saw the transformation I had on my students each week, throughout the week, getting better and better, more and more confident in their English skills, but also finding their life mission, which is our sort of culminating event in the program. And that's why we call our interns mentors rather than teachers. You're really mentoring these Japanese high school students, and it really is fulfilling. super rewarding, and you really see how much of an impact you have. So while this is a fantastic cultural exchange program, a wonderful opportunity to explore Japan with your peers, with university students from around the world, first and foremost, Global English Camp is about the Japanese students that you impact. So here's the schedule. I've left that up there. I'm going to move on. This is a video that I'm going to skip for now, but it is on the website if you haven't checked it out. I think it gives a good overview, and oftentimes better than pictures to see it actually in action. So it's in our Global English Camp info page if you want to check it out. So what is Global English Camp? And a lot of you might have already read this on the site, but it's a 5-week unpaid internship in Japan. It's highly subsidized, though. I will get to that in a bit. 1 week of these 5 weeks is training, and 4 weeks is teaching. And it's a week-long program, and so you teach 4 different groups of students after a week of training. The interns in our program are anywhere from first-year university students to PhD graduates, to anywhere from 18 to 30, basically, or even older. We have a wide range of candidates, and we like to have different students in terms of ages, majors, backgrounds, personal experiences, teaching experience in Japan. We want a diversity because that really provides the most broad and potentially impactful program for students, if students can learn from different kinds of people in our program. So don't get worried if you don't study Japanese. 75% of our interns have never studied Japanese at all. And don't get worried if you're not you don't have a ton of teaching experience. We're looking for people who have a passion for teaching and mentoring rather than actual experience. Of course, that helps, but do not stress if you don't have a ton of experience when you're applying. So the goal is to facilitate the improvement of expressing opinions in English. So you're not going to be able to teach them a ton of new vocabulary in 5 days. However, you do really build their confidence, and you do instill a love of learning English as well. And then, of course, helping the students discover their life missions, how they want to contribute to the world, what their dreams and goals are. A lot of students, quite frankly, discover their life mission during the camp. That's why it's really more so a mentorship. And it's also, super fulfilling in that regard too. So each week we have a textbook right here that I will go over a little bit later that we go over in training, and you use that to facilitate discussion roughly 9:30 to 5:30 Monday through Friday with 2 to 6 Japanese students. We do have some junior high school students, so as young as maybe 13 years old, 14. And then we do have a few first or second year university students as well that do the program, but the vast majority are Japanese high school students. Outside of the classroom, we have lots of program-sponsored activities. We have Japanese language classes, things like that, that are super fun and add to our big community feeling that is so important to us in this program. As far as dates, as you guys probably saw on the website, it's mid-July to end of August. And just to give you an idea of what it was last year, we cannot confirm until early next year, especially given COVID, probably even more delays, but we're waiting for the Japanese school system to release their summer schedule, since we base our dates around that. However, just to give you tentative dates to throw out there, July 10th start date for Group A, so we divide our cohort into 2 groups, and July 17th, the start date for Group B. The end dates, respectively, would be August 20th and August 27th. Those are very tentative dates, but that gives you a good idea. And we give priority to people who have school obligations or work obligations to choose which group you're in. So, for example, here in California, UC Berkeley, I believe, starts quite much earlier than my alumni UCLA. And so all UC Berkeley students are usually in Group A. And this goes the same if you have a job that's going up till July 14th, then you're going to be put in Group B. In each group, there's about 100 interns. So those are the 2019 numbers. This upcoming year, roughly 200 to 250. Again, it's all tentative with if the program will happen or not. But that's around the numbers we're going to look for. And a good chunk of those are returning interns. And so those are students doing the program for a second or third time, and they help lead the program. Um, so within your cohort of about 100 interns, there's about 10 groups uh, of 10 to 12 students, or excuse me, interns. And you will have a returning intern or two or three, oftentimes, that are leading your group. And so you will be traveling around Japan or sticking in one spot. I'll get to that in a bit too, with your group of 10 to 12. And speaking of traveling around, we had over 50 venues in Japan recently, and that number is growing and growing. Up north in Hokkaido, all the way down south to Okinawa. And how you get placed is based on your preference. If you want to be in Tokyo the whole time, or Kansai region, that's where Kyoto and Osaka are, or are you flexible to travel around? And then we base the schedule on that. As it says on the website, we don't determine where you're going in Japan until you get there, and that's because students sign up so late for the program that it's really a last minute ordeal for us to place everyone at the right schools. And so you could be, in Tokyo the entire time, or you could be in a different venue each week. It really varies group to group. A typical experience would be 2 or 3 weeks at a home base venue, so Tokyo, Osaka, Nagoya, Yokohama, and 1 to 2 weeks at another venue. And I'll get more into the details of how that works later, but just to give you an overview. 3 companies involved. So I am Come On Out Japan, me and a few others that are not here. And we are the program administrator. We're handling all the recruiting as well as the onboarding procedures, get you prepared to come to Japan. We send extensive onboarding packages, welcome packages that have anything from tips and traveling around Japan to what you need to do the moment you land, to helpful Japanese phrases that you can use, to a health and wellness package to learn about your specific needs to make sure your stay is comfortable. So we do all that, and then we're also ground support and lead the interns while in Japan. Nagase Bros and Toshin, that is our Japanese partner, the program sponsor. As far as recruiting, they do the second interview. So if you pass our interview, you move on to them. Of course, both interviews are all in English, roughly 30 minutes each. And they are running the classroom. So they're the ones gathering all the Japanese students. They're quite famous. If you mention Toshin in Japan, more than likely the person you'll talk to will know the name. In fact, my favorite baseball team in Japan, the Tokyo Swallows, have an advertisement for Toshin in left field. So they're quite famous, but they're also quite progressive and on the frontier of Japanese education, including this program, which is super fun and super impactful. And then Come On Up is the other program sponsor. They also do administrative tasks like us. They are basically a primary contact in Japan. They also handle the reimbursements. They handle the housing, transportation, language classes, outside activities. And we work closely with them as well. All right. Application phases. So you guys have probably seen this on the website. We do things in phases because we accept interns on a rolling basis. So what that means is if you apply before December 1st at midnight PST, so November 30th to be safe, we consider you in the first phase. And right after November 30th hits, we start reviewing applications. And so if you are really enthusiastic about this program, we recommend applying earlier because, just to put it simply, you have a better chance of getting in because we start filling positions as soon as if we interview you, you're great. You interview with Japan, you're great. We're putting you on the roster. And so if you apply later, you get considered later and there may be less positions available. So if there's anything important to take away from the info session about applying is apply early. And our process in general is going to be a little delayed in terms of contacting you about your interviews. So by January 15th, hopefully sooner. Again, it's rolling basis, and then confirming. And of course, in these times of uncertainty, you can accept. Let's say you're accepted, you can confirm with us, but you're not locked in until you buy your plane ticket, and we're not going to have you do our plane ticket purchase process if it's not safe. So we're very flexible in that regard, and we'll just keep everyone updated. And that's how it's going to be. So if you're hesitating about going to summer, but you're really interested, just apply. And if it doesn't happen, we can talk about the next year. And every year we do cut off um, applications. So again, apply early. A couple common questions we get. You do not need to be a native English speaker, just native level. So we determine that in the application and the interview. There is no Japanese language experience at all. The only reason we ask it on the application is to prepare our professors that teach courses during the summer. That is offered to you guys after school, free and really a great experience. So that's the only reason we ask that. Don't worry, don't need that. And in fact, there's no Japanese allowed in the classroom with the students. It's an English immersive program. Like I said earlier, no formal teaching experience required, just a passion for mentorship. The TEFL certificate is not required at all. It can, as it says on the website, it can be an asset, and that's because, well, it's a course about teaching English. So naturally you can pick up some more skills, and it's really beneficial for, if you are interested in ESL in general, especially right now, getting jobs, virtual jobs. Is something great. So, but it's not required for this program. Do not need to visit Japan before. And what is required? These are super important. That what we're looking for in our applicants: patience. Many of you are probably learning a language now or have learned a language, and patience is key to that process. And that is the same with teaching one and mentoring students that may be a little bit shy and a little bit nervous to do an English camp in a language that they're not as familiar with. So that's really important. Flexibility, we cannot stress this enough. The ability to adapt and excel while being flexible and adapting. I'll just say the words over and over again. And not only is that because you're, living in another country for 5 weeks, it's also because due to the nature of the program and students signing up late, we might ask partway through the program and say, hey, we actually need half of this team to go down to Fukuoka instead of Osaka this week because we have suddenly more student signups. And while that doesn't happen all the time, it does happen. And so we appreciate that flexibility and ability to adapt while living abroad. And teaching can be tiring, and it's even more tiring when you're in another country. And so this patience and flexibility are super important, and goes without saying maturity as well. And of course, passion. Again, it's a fantastic cultural experience that you can share with incredible interns from around the world. I know our community is so strong, and we just have great interns that return year after year. But first and foremost is the students and the passion for helping them. So if you're doing your application and you want to emphasize some qualities, this is really what we think are the most important. I'm going to stop right here for any questions so far. We're going to get into orientation and training, the actual camp in the classroom, and then the outside of the classroom stuff, and then the subsidies. So no questions on those 4 things, but does anyone have any questions about the application or general overview of the camp? Feel free to type it in or unmute yourself since we have a smaller group.
When would I need to give my final answer for whether or not I will be participating in the project after the interview?
Right, and a great question. And I can't give an exact answer now, which maybe it won't surprise you, Trinity. But we will basically be keeping in touch with everyone, and we will give everyone all the time they need. Because, like I said earlier, it's once you purchase the plane ticket that means you're in the program. Because when you purchase the ticket, and I'll get into this later, you put down a safety deposit that you'll get back at the end of the program. So that's really when it is, and so in years past, it's led up till March and April where we kind of give final notice, like we got to get the tickets. This year, totally different. We might not know during that time if it's still in limbo. So I wouldn't think so much about a date because we are going to be super flexible, and we're going to have a wait list to fill spots if needed. So Trinity, if you, for example, drop out last minute, it's totally fine. We can go to the wait list.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question about the application.
Yeah.
So on the application, there's like a part where it's like you can attach your resume, but it's optional. Is this like a thing that's like optional, or is it like recommended optional?
I know, I understand the question completely, and we're sorry for creating that anxiety of should I attach it or not. We like reviewing them, but it's not technically part of our consideration because our main focus is those short answer questions. We want to get to know everyone personally, and a resume can't always do that. So, um, again, going back to like the flexibility and the passion for teaching, that's what we read. That's what we want to see. Uh, so, not necessary. Will not affect your chances. Thanks for asking that. Um, I'm going to go to the chat because there's a few here. Recording will be posted. We've got a few on our comeonoutjapan.com/webinars. We've got a few info sessions up there, and this one will be posted as well, Joey. Can you ask to be located in a specific city in Japan? Good question. There are no guarantees of where you'll be placed. There are a lot of different venues, and just to be a little bit cliche, every experience is fantastic. If you're in 5 weeks in Tokyo, because we have tons of students there, and you're bummed, don't be, because Tokyo you cannot explore in 5 weeks. You need a lot more time to explore that city, which is an incredible place. If you wanted more Tokyo, but you got some rural locations, well, I wouldn't be too upset about that because quite frankly, the staff at a smaller venue, maybe you have only 5 interns at a school in a rural spot. The staff will take you out and oftentimes more often than not, show you their favorite spots in this small town. That's also the place, rural places are where you're going to do homestays if you're interested in a homestay with a student, which I'll get to. So we'll take preferences, but there's no guarantees at all. We basically just take a generalized thing of where you want to be, Tokyo, Kansai, and then a rate of how flexible you are in terms of how much you want to travel. Because we want people to be comfortable too. And maybe you're more comfortable sticking around in one spot. So hopefully that answered Sarah's question. Arturo, are there any skills or characteristics besides the ones mentioned that help an applicant stand out? Again, in the question about teaching experience, if you don't have any teaching experience, explain why you want teaching experience and why you want why your goals are aligned with ours for the program, why you want to mentor Japanese high school students. People ask me, is there anything that immediately declines an application? And if I read through an application, which we all do thoroughly, by the way, and we enjoy doing it, so don't worry about writing too much. If I don't see a clear indicator that a primary reason is to impact students, then that goes out. So I know this is kind of a different question, Arturo, than what you exactly asked, but that is like my number one recommendation. Again, and then the flexibility and adaptability, which we do really need. And I would also say, in your life mission, when I was a first, second, third, fourth, still, I don't know, I have a life mission that's way more defined, but it's hard to clarify what your life mission is, especially while you're at university. Even if you don't have a single life mission, in that question, at least list some ideas of what you might be exploring of how you want to contribute to the world. And if so, if you're not sure, if you have 4 or 5 different things, what are you going to do to determine that? That clarity is very helpful, especially when talking with the Japanese team, since the life mission is such a big focus. So hopefully that gave you a couple more insights, Arturo. How does Olympics 21? Yeah, so one thing we're doing is following closely the Olympics guidelines and whether or not they're holding the program. That may or may not determine if we do go forward with the program. Usually we actually have a curriculum. Part of the curriculum is about the Olympics, and with the Olympics happening, it's going to be changed a little bit. But as far as potential schedule changes, that's really going to affect Tokyo, and we're just going to have to go with the flow, and we're going to have housing, so you don't have to worry about that with the Olympics and crowded. It's going to be more of a cultural, during training week of getting used to living in Tokyo with a ton of other people from around the world gathered for the Olympics. So I think it's going to be both exciting and a little crazy too, but that's how it'll play in. Native level, yeah, Andres, you can submit your TEFL. Actually, that's a great idea, to give us let us know. But again, like I said, we determine that through the interview. That seems a little informal, but really, when you're interviewing with me, for example, we're going to be having a conversation, and that gives me an idea of whether or not you can have that conversation with Japanese students. So, but yeah, it's good to attach. And then Sarah, located with your friend. Again, sounds like a cliche answer, but no guarantees. Sure, go ahead, request it, but we just can't guarantee it. But we do want people to be comfortable during the program, of course. And how many students usually apply for the internship and how many accepted? So that's the last question for now. I'm not trying to stress you guys out, but last year, 2019, we had, or excuse me, 2020, we had 1,200 people apply. And we only accept, roughly, I guess we were in the low 200s. So that's a pretty low acceptance rate, but it drastically increases if you apply earlier, because half of that number applied in the first phase, and we started hiring during that first phase. So don't get discouraged by those numbers. It is a popular and competitive program, but if you're enthusiastic and you apply early, it raises your chances for sure. One thing I will say, you guys, is that we will be allowing 2020 interns to come back, and we're not sure how many will want to come back. And this will lower the amount of spots. We're estimating no more than 50% based on what we've asked so far, talking with 2020 interns so far. But don't get discouraged by that as well. How much of each day is scheduled? Oh, great question, Trinity. I will get to that in a second. I actually was going to go over these, but since you guys pretty much answered, most of these, GPA is more about your standing with the school. We're not going to, a 4.0 versus a 3.0 is not going to affect your application. Application from previous years affect ours. We love seeing people that apply multiple years. Dietary requirements. Usually I have one of my staff members here who's halal and talks about his experience creating halal and vegetarian maps, and we have translations and guides to help everyone, and we accommodate for all these dietary requirements in our onboarding process. Visas, you're on a tourist visa, so it's an unpaid internship, so you can come for 90 days. Some countries are different. This is for the US, Canada, and UK. You can do 90 days. Other countries that are different, we work with you individually to get your visa. And then the character reference comes during the onboarding process, not during the application. Oh, here's the question so far. Sorry, I got ahead of myself, guys. But so I think we're going to be good for now. Usually we get more questions later when we get to subsidies and things like that. Here's a sample schedule, like I showed you, of the textbook earlier. It's quite thorough. We've been working on this for years, change it every year based on intern feedback, what works, what doesn't. So 9:30 to 5:30 is when you're required to be at work at the classroom. We have a little meeting in the morning to go over things with staff and leaders, prepare you for the day, and then we start the day at 10. I think it's a great balance. Of course, I'm a little biased running the program, but I think it's a great balance of games, speaking exercises, serious discussions, global issues, things like that, and then presentations that the students do. So you can see here, they've got 3 presentations. Tokyo 2020, or they have other optional content to present on, the United Nations, and then the life mission, of course, on the last day. But a lot of it is not as serious, and these fun games. That's, huge atmosphere of our camp. It is called an English camp, and games and speaking exercise and having fun is an important part of it, because a lot of these students are really nervous, and a lot of these students, certainly you have to break the shell to get them comfortable with speaking in their second language that, even though they've learned it academically their whole lives, a lot of them, most of them have never done an immersive program like this. But that also makes it really special to instill a love for learning through this camp. So games are super important. So some presentations. While I'm clicking through these photos, I forgot to mention that the skill level of English, like in any language learning process, it varies quite a bit. So high school students, some are quite, they're quite nervous. We have a cutoff, but they're quite nervous and struggling and speak less than others. While some groups are about as fluent as all of us here, which is really an interesting experience. And that it can be challenging, but I think it also is really rewarding. And we prepare you in training week to use this textbook but we also prepare you to have optional activities. If something's not working in here, you have the freedom and flexibility to do something else. Say, hey, you know what? Let's do a game. Let's get the energy up. So while you do not have to prepare anything yourselves, curriculum-wise, it's also very flexible. Here's a great picture of the atmosphere of our program and our presentations. This is an entrepreneurship discussion. We have a group that created the microwave bento box called Mike, and we have a group that created the domination switch to turn off your annoying siblings. And I like these pictures because they show the nature of the program. We're having fun. We're mixing serious discussions like the United Nations with more fun stuff as well. And as you can see, the interns kind of stand up on stage with the students when they're presenting, for moral support. And yeah, and you really do see them in these presentations. It's really tangible seeing their transformation and their improvement in their English speaking skills and confidence. On the last day, as I mentioned, the life mission speech, really special. I look forward to this every week in every camp, and it's the reason why I stuck around, like I said. You see how much the week has affected them. A lot of times students find their life missions during this week. I had a student who was a first-year university student studying economics. He was a bit disillusioned, a bit jaded. We talked through it the whole week. He made a presentation about switching to education, finding his passion, and I still stay in touch with him. Super special, super rewarding, and really honored to have an impact on that student. So it's really great, and just a wonderful way to end the camp, and inspiring to hear students. They're what they want to do in life. It's really cool. After that, there's a little graduation ceremony. If you didn't realize how much you impacted your students then, this is when you do. Students give speeches to you. You give speeches to students about what this week meant. They give you little message cards. I've got one of mine here. More often than not, they'll give you gifts. I've got this here. It's really special. This is where tears happen too. Tears of, they don't want to end this week because it was so special to them. And every Friday at 6 p.m. we have to kick the students out and stop taking selfies and stop talking to the mentors, because we gotta let the mentors go. They're done with the work, but the students just want to stay. But that's really just a testament to the camp. This is also the only time we allow our mentors, if you know any Japanese, or if you're like me and do not know any Japanese, to try and say a few words and surprise the students. Kind of a tradition we have, and we have staff to help you write those speeches too. And it's always a nice surprise. One story I like to tell as far as gifts is one student or one intern wore his Global English Camp Teachers t-shirt, which you can see behind me, which we give out every year. And he wore it every day, and the students thought, well, this guy doesn't have any other shirts, and they all bought him a new t-shirt, a special t-shirt. It's so cute. Another one, one of our interns loved getting different convenience store snacks throughout the week and bring her students. So she brought her students chocolates and chips and things like that. And they built her like a backpack out of Japanese snacks. That was incredible. It was just, and this happens more often than not at these incredible gifts. And it's just a really nice way to see how much of an impact. So again, throughout this presentation, the rest of the presentation, I'm going to talk about what we do outside a classroom and how it's special there. But really remember this when you're writing your application, and if you end up doing this program, is that it's all about the students and the impact we have on them. So let me check the questions before we get into subsidies. So Trinity, hopefully that answered your question about the schedule. So from 9:30 to 5:30, roughly, you're in class. I say roughly because 9:30 we arrive and have a little meeting, and students start leaving at 5, but some stick around, and sometimes you have an after class meeting to go over any concerns with students. And after that, you are essentially on your own. You can do whatever you want in Japan. Go explore with friends, fellow interns. We have language classes going on. We have cooking classes. We have program-sponsored activities. I'll get into that a bit. We have unofficial activities. I'll come in and say, hey, I've got 10 spots at my favorite restaurant in Tokyo. Who wants to go with? First come, first serve. A big community feeling going on. But other than that, after school, it's up to you to do. The only other requirements that you would need to be part of your schedule is on Sundays, which is our travel day, or on the weekend. If you're teaching 1 week in Tokyo, for example, and the next week in Osaka, on Sunday you're going to need to take the bullet train, the Shinkansen, down to Osaka, and we provide those tickets, of course. Or you're going to need to take the plane to Okinawa. So those are the only other requirements. Otherwise, you're on your own. But if you speak in a high level of Japanese, will it help in applications? Joey, we really appreciate people who do, and we think that's awesome. We try not to consider it as much because we want everyone to we want a diversity of candidates. And we know there's a ton of Japanese majors that apply. So it won't necessarily help. However, we do love hearing stories about that, and we really appreciate people that are studying Japanese. Jerry, live and work in Japan. Yeah, totally fine. Yeah, you can still apply. Sorry if you can hear that outside my house. How long does travel between places usually take during the weekends? Great question. Depends. So like a bullet train from Tokyo to Osaka is about 2.5 hours. The longest flight will also be about the same. But usually how we group people is region based. So it's not going to be these big trips on the weekends. So you're not going to lose a lot of weekend time to it, but you will have to travel. That being said, public transportation is fantastic in Japan on a daily basis too. We cover transportation to and from your home to school, right? But after school, take advantage and get around. It's really, really convenient. All right, I think any more questions on, let's just do it on the camp. It's the camp contents and curriculum itself, the actual, any other questions there? Feel free to unmute or type it in the chat before we get to subsidies.
Is there a way we can look at the textbook, if we're accepted and before the training, is there a way to that we have the chance to look at the material?
We don't share the exact textbook. We share outlines, and I mean we have that sample online. The other thing I forgot to mention is that you guys also give a presentation during the camp, and there's two things you do: a university fair presentation. You talk about your university life, even if you graduated. Just talk about when you're at university. It's kind of like an icebreaker for the students, and a lot of students want to study abroad anyways, so it's really fun to learn about your life at university. And then the other one is about your major or field of study or life mission. And you'll create that before coming out. And those are really special because if you give a presentation on your life mission, for example, I studied film, gave a presentation on film, students that were not in my group came up to me and I helped them do their film school applications and things like that. So it's a nice way to meet other students. But yeah, thanks for the question. We don't provide it before, but we can provide outlines. And then when you get there, of course, you get your book right away and we jump into training. And if I didn't mention before, training is very thorough for 1 week and we go over every possible scenario to make sure people are comfortable. So again, don't worry about the teaching experience. If you have university classes at the same time, program 6 weeks clashes with the term. Joey, I'm not sure if you go to school or a university in Australia, or anywhere in the Southern Hemisphere, we usually have trouble with just because of the different summers. But we really want to try making it work. So if you're interested, just apply and we'll talk to you and see what we can do. We've had a few people in the past leave a couple days early, but of course we can't guarantee that. And hopefully in the future, if anyone is again in the Southern Hemisphere and have a different summer schedule, we're hoping to eventually launch programs that coordinate with that as well. People have also taken online classes while doing this program. Every year we inevitably have interns that are studying for the MCAT or the GRE or university exams. All right, I'm going to move. Oh wait, maybe there's one more. Suggest activity. Oh yeah. Oh Charlotte, absolutely. Like I said, big time is the intern suggestions, and we have a whole presentation on games. We play the games in training week to get used to tons of a huge backlog of games, and every year we're looking for people to suggest them, and we have that time in training for new activities to get inserted, and we get new ones every year that are fantastic. So definitely not strict. The textbook is actually quite flexible, and what it comes down to is we have the interns running the class. You guys and the leaders, the returning interns, myself, it's up to us, and we trust you guys to what benefits your students best. But of course, Japanese staff is always there to help too, and if needed. All right, for the sake of time, I am going to move on to the subsidies. So our subsidies for next year are still yet to be confirmed. This happens every year. We confirm them during the onboarding process. However, especially this year with coronavirus, we are taking a lot of things into consideration. There will be delays, but I will tell you guys the subsidies from 2019, the last program, since it could be quite similar. So the airfare in 2019, we covered up to 1,600 USD. And that is, from your home or your university to Tokyo and back. So a round trip airfare to Japan. If you have to have a layover, that's fine. But if you're stopping over for vacation, that limitation drops a bit, because our program sponsor wants to encourage people to come to Japan early if you have the time and do some vacation or traveling there before the program, because 5 weeks really goes by quickly in the summer, and 5 weekends is not a lot of time to explore Japan. So when you purchase your ticket, you do so through our travel agency, and all you pay at the time of purchase is a $500, so USD or equivalent, deposit. So this is a safety deposit. Make sure you don't just get the free flight to Japan and bail. And we just have it in our travel agency, and you get 400 of that back, so minus 100 USD for an onboarding fee. And you get that back within 45 days of completion of the program. So it's not a completely free trip to Japan. That's the fee we have, and it covers all sorts of our onboarding stuff we have to do. But other than that, that's how the plane ticket process works. And of course, this year that'll probably be delayed as well. Housing, you get housing for the entire program. That varies venue to venue. A very common housing situation we interns have is shared housing. Is what it sounds like. You have your own room, you share amenities at a house with other interns. Super fun, super social, and that's our most common housing. We have all the other things listed there too. Some venues have hotels we put you up in because that's what's available. It really changes venue to venue, and this is again why we go back to the flexibility as being an important part of participating in this program. And then, like I mentioned earlier, homestays. So staying with a student's family, which is a really special experience. If you want to do that, make sure to, if you get accepted, make sure to be okay going to more rural locations, not be in Tokyo and Osaka the whole time, because that's where the majority of the homestay happens. And it really is special. I think there's a benefit to both, and share house, getting to know other interns, exploring together, hanging out of the house, and then of course, on the other side of things, homestay, you're staying with a family that takes you around wherever they live and shows you, all the local spots. And it's really, and maybe does your laundry too and sends you to school with bento boxes. Really special. But we do require housing throughout the whole program. The fee is if you want to guarantee an individual apartment to live by yourself, which we've done a couple times in the past, but that's only if you want that. Otherwise, it's completely covered. So food and subsidies, 2,300 yen per weekday, about 23 US dollars. I always like to mention that a common misconception is that food in Japan is really expensive. That's what I thought. Then I realized that could have one of the best bowls of ramen in my life for $5. This is very true in Japan. Konbinis, convenience stores, have good quality food, a little bit different than here in the States. And so you can really use that budget wisely. I always recommend bringing extra cash to splurge on some big meals every now and then, but you can really use this quite well throughout the program. Like I said earlier, transportation to and from class is provided, of course, and then any travel, like on your plane to, if you're going up to Hokkaido or your bullet train down to Osaka on the weekend, that is of course provided to you too. And then the cultural stuff, like I said, these optional trips after school. Every summer in the past, we've gone to Hakone, which is a beautiful natural area next to Mount Fuji at the end of training week for an overnight trip. It's our little retreat to celebrate the end of training week before going into teaching. So we have these optional trips throughout the summer, and that includes language classes as well. And yeah, they're super fun. And like I said also earlier, we have a lot of unofficial stuff too. So like staff and people taking interns out. Of course, that's not always going to be paid for. And in 2019, we allotted two activities that you could choose, and also the overnight trip to Hakone that was provided, and then any additional program events you would pay for. But we have a lot going on always. But again, they're optional. You can do whatever you want outside of class and any required travel. And of course, the health insurance, which we are working to, we may have to change this year, of course, or this upcoming summer. Um, but in the past, it's worked really well. Um, and yeah, it covers. We had an intern end up going to the hospital for a spontaneous collapsed lung. He's totally fine. He actually came back for a second year. But the point is, it was completely covered. Of course, he took the train instead of taking an ambulance, which he should have because it would have been covered. But the entire thing was covered, and so it is good insurance to make you guys hopefully feel safe. And like I said, we have these health and wellness forms that are pretty extensive that you fill out before going to the program. All right, I'm going to stop here. Actually, I'm going to leave this up and have any questions on subsidy-based things. Usually there's
I had a question about the language classes.
Yeah.
So are those like after the program on weekdays, or how do they work?
Yeah, in the past we've done 2 days a week, and it's after, and usually a lot like class ends at 5:30 and the lesson will start at 6:30, so you have an hour to go get food. And they're of course free provided. The only thing we ask is that you let the teacher know, we kind of do a 24-hour thing so that they're prepared with how many students. Like, you don't have to go to every single class, but we just have to know. So this is a bit sign up system. Yeah. And of course, those are different levels as well that we have. Any other questions on subsidies?
I did have another question. You
Go ahead.
said for the plane ticket, you mentioned something about like, do you have to buy the plane ticket for the exact date that you come? Like for like when the program starts? Because you mentioned something about like vacationing.
Yeah, no, great question. I didn't clarify that. So you get the round trip ticket from your home university airport to Tokyo and back. When you arrive and when you leave is up to you. We just provide housing starting, for example, on the 10th of July and ending the August 22nd, so the Sunday after. So from the orientation weekend up till the Sunday after classes, and you have housing, but you can come early, stay later. What if you have the means to travel, yeah, do that. And we offer discounted housing too if you need it if you come to Japan early, for example. But yeah, you can choose the dates that works for you. It's up, and we basically just are on the email chain with you and the travel agency and just confirm when we make sure it's good to go. So yeah. I saw a couple questions come in the chat too. For the housing, if you live in Japan, can you stay where you are? Yep, that's okay. We've actually had a couple people do that in the past. So you do not have to move into the provided housing. And what happens in terms of visas? So because it's unpaid, we can do a tourist visa. And again, that is the situation for the States, UK, and Canada. Well, unless things change this upcoming summer. But if you have a citizenship to a different country that requires a visa, we work with you individually to get the visa for you. But it is a tourist visa. So in the US, for example, it's 90 days free tourist visa. If you stay with a family in their home and they volunteer in their home, are they being reimbursed? The people doing the homestays really want to do the homestays. Like, it's all about the fact that they have an international student living with them and hanging out with their student, spending time with the family. It's a cultural experience for them, and that's why I recommend it so much. And that's why all of our interns that do the homestays have nothing but great things to say. And every year we have returning interns come back and say, can I please stay with my homestay again? And of course, and a lot of interns have gone back to visit homestay and stayed with them for multiple weeks. It's such a special experience. The family wants you there. which is, fantastic. Any other questions on what we've gone through so far? Okay. And I appreciate you guys not overwhelming with questions. Well, we usually have someone monitoring the chat, and hopefully I'm answering them all. And again, if I miss something or you have another question, um, I will type in my email right after I finish this presentation. It's matt@comeonoutjapan.com, but I will type that in. So just to give you some idea of outside the classroom, because again, it's all about the students, but there's some really special things we do, cultural activities, events. Top left picture, a matsuri. So there's summer festivals going on. It's hot and humid in Japan in the summer, but it's a downside for some people. But the upside is there's tons of free festivals going on that are super fun. Top right is an onsen, or hot springs, so a bathhouse, super relaxing, and we always go there. That one's in Tokyo, but they're all over. Bottom left, cooking night. I think we're doing some sashimi there, and bottom right is in Hakone. Tea ceremonies, calligraphy classes. That's on a boat trip on the bottom left. On the bottom right is going for a hike to a shrine. We have so many different things, and if you're at a smaller venue, the leader, a returning intern, will decide a trip. And there's been, from going to Team Lab Borderless Digital Art Museum, which is our really popular one, super cool in Tokyo, if you haven't heard of that, to a snorkeling trip in Okinawa. It's just lots of different options. And like I said, the language classes. And then we also have a language exchange with Tokyo University, which is really cool every year to meet some students from Tokyo University and make some connections there as well. And here's some pictures of our classes over the years. And our team. So we had a really small team, and we've been growing ever since, and changing our t-shirt color every year. Yeah, see if you can find me in this picture. It's a lot of people. And 2019. So this was when we just started doing the 2 separate groups to stagger the program. And the different shirts indicate the returning interns. So 2021, you enjoyed the program. But here's the returning interns. So every year we have more. So the red shirts in this picture are doing it for the 3rd time, and the blue shirts doing it for the 2nd time. And so this is what it comes down to is the interns are really the backbone of our program. Whether it's running the classroom or running cultural activities in Japan, it's just a really, really wonderful community, and a major reason why I came back. But of course, the first being the students. So if you are interested, please apply early. Like I said earlier, that's what we highly encourage. I'm going to take some more questions now. Since we're nearing the hour mark, but I'll go a little bit over. I tend to ramble at these info sessions, so I always notice I end later than if my other staff does it. So I'll give you guys, 5-10 minutes if we have more questions. First, I'm just gonna real quick put my email into the chat. And you guys can always contact me. And yeah, so this time, if anyone wants to unmute or just type it in the chat, I will await any more questions. And maybe we don't. I'll stick around here awkwardly for 5 minutes though, because some questions might come up. And I know it's kind of an overwhelming presentation to cover all that and the whole experience in just our short time here. So.
Hello,
Hey.
can you hear me?
Yeah.
I just want to ask just a clarifying question. So the one for like Group B start date would be 17th of July. So would that be like the start date of the program, or like the start date of when you would be flying out?
Yeah, good question. And of course, again, just to say it, tentative dates, especially this year as we await the school schedule and if we're going to do the program. But the 17th is a Saturday, so that's the day that the orientation weekend starts. So you arrive, I actually didn't go over this and I apologize. Before training starts on Monday, you arrive Friday or Saturday. And in the past, again, this very much well could change this upcoming summer and beyond. We've stayed in Asakusa, which is kind of the cultural hub of Tokyo. And it's just a weekend to unwind, hopefully get over jet lag if you're just arriving. We do some like excursions throughout Tokyo, just some fun stuff. We have a big welcome dinner. And then Sunday, everyone moves into their housing and hopefully gets some rest before training on Monday. So I didn't mention that earlier, Arturo, I'm sorry, but that first weekend is like our orientation weekend, just kind of fun stuff as everyone's arriving. Okay, so we've got a couple questions in the chat I'm going to go to. So Sophie, applying for the JET program, awesome. I'm constantly writing letters of rec for people doing the JET program after doing our program. Yes, that would be totally fine to work out with visas. We'll just do it again, the visa situation is really just on a case-by-case basis. Most people just don't need it because the tourist visa for 90 days works out. Good, and good luck on your JET application. That's awesome. And we've had interns who have done our program and gone right into JET. Sarah, is this program at University of Manchester? Yeah, so this year, you're welcome, Sophie. This year we started marketing to some more schools. So yes, you're absolutely eligible. Just in that on our website is just the schools we've marketed into the past, and we want to expand and add more and more schools every year. So yeah, Sarah, of course. This might see restriction in terms of Charlotte, about tattoos. Good question, one that we always get. So for those who don't know, there's a slight taboo about tattoos in Japan. It's not always looked down upon, but for example, in onsen or bathhouses, a lot of them will deny you entry if you have a tattoo. That's unfortunate, and we actually have ongoing list of those that do allow you in with a tattoo with interns that have done the program with tattoos. Secondly, venue to venue, Charlotte, would be about whether or not you need to cover it up. So some venues may say, oh, do you have if you have a tattoo on your forearm, just wear a long sleeve shirt. So just come prepared if that's the case. Usually it's fine, but again, we have a ton of different venues, and some venues may prefer you covered up, or otherwise you don't need to. So we prepare you with talking to the staff at each venue. Does your GPA matter? It matters just for the fact that you're in good standing in your university. That's the only reason we ask it. And then in the onboarding process, we ask for your transcript. But I think I briefly mentioned earlier, 4.0 versus 2.0 or whatever. That's not something we're highly considering. We're really looking at those experiential questions, those short answer. Oh, sorry, UK equivalent of GPA is, oh gosh, what's it called? Someone knows in this chat, and I forgot. A levels? No, that's the high school. I'll have to get back to you on that. But if you Google it, it'll tell you. Just put that in there. As you can tell, it's not super important for our application. We just want to make sure you're in good standing with your university. Any other questions? Thank you for the kind comments. I'll be on for, I'll just say another 2 minutes. So if you have any final questions, be good to ask them now. But,
Hello again.
Yeah.
I just had another question about the
Go ahead.
length for the written responses. So I guess I saw like 500 words, right? The life mission one, but that basically applied to all the rest of them.
Yeah, it applies to all of them. But if you need to go over, if you feel you need to go over to truly explain your answer, we're fine with that too. That's kind of why we're a bit vague, because we don't want to hold people back. Because again, a big part of the process is us reading your answers to each of those questions. But don't feel like you need to fill the 500. If you can get it done in shorter, totally fine. I know that's a bit cliche, but that's just how it is.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Yeah, thanks, Arturo. All right, any other final questions? Thank you. All right, then. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate the kind comments in the chat. Thank you for taking time out of your evening. Thanks for all your questions. We have an FAQ list up on the website too. And we have our other recordings as well with me and other staff presenting. Check them out if you want. Otherwise, my email, here it is. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. If you're interested, go apply now. We'll be in touch in the next month or so if you do. And otherwise, thanks again, guys, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, you too.